came in pre-season, I believed, and the staff believed that we could win it. We can win this championship. You boys deserve to be here.
Remember his name. The Mariners are on their way now. Complete. And tonight, they gave it the full Monty. This was not meant to happen. This could not happen. This is happening.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Coach's Son podcast. Today we have a man who really needs no introduction, especially here in Australia. But I'm going to give you one anyway because he deserves it. He's done it all with over 600 professional appearances as a player, an ex-Sheffield United captain and player of the season. Let's not forget the impact that he made in our great country as well. A-League champion as a player and as a coach, and most recently part of the coaching staff for Tottenham Hotspur with the Europa League triumph. Mr. Nick Montgomery, welcome to the Coach's Son podcast.
Thanks for the introduction, guys. Good to be on finally.
Awesome. Beautiful, man. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. So generally how we like to start, give us a bit of your background. How did football come into your life?
So really simple. Grew up in Leeds, which is obviously Northern England. Leeds United, everybody knows, was a massive club. Back in the day, was one of the biggest clubs in England, and I always sort of started playing football at school around 6 years old, and into like Sunday League, which is what they call it in England, sort of grassroots football, and from there made it into like the Leeds City schoolboy teams, and then into Leeds United Academy, and I left school at 16, joined Sheffield United on a 2-year scholarship, and then spent the next 15 years there playing in the first team. Obviously a fantastic time there, big club, playing in the Championship, the Premier League, FA Cup semi-finals and playoff finals, and obviously after that moved over to Australia, to the Mariners when I was about 31 years old. Wanted to try something a little bit different, and really enjoyed my time in Australia as a player. So that's real short version. It would be a really long version of ups and downs and injuries and illnesses and all the stuff that goes along with a playing career. So that's a real short version of it. And we find ourselves here today.
You just touched on it just then, Nick. So most of your time at Sheffield United, close to 400 appearances, lots of highs and lows from promotions to relegations and, Player of the Season awards. How did you find your time at Bromwell?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, look, it's a real sort of working class club, and sort of coming from a working class family like I did in Leeds. I was the only one that played football. No one else in my family really had anything to do with football, which was strange. People always think, oh, your dad must have loved football, or your brother. It's the total opposite. None of them liked football. My brother used to just like fighting. He got into boxing. So again, it's a sport, but completely different. But sort of spending 4 or 5 years at Leeds United, and then I had the sort of glandular fever, a couple of illnesses that just really set me back. And then Sheffield United came along and offered me a 2-year scholarship. So sort of joining the club. And it's just a club rich in history, developing players, and just to name a few, Kyle Walker, Harry Maguire, Phil Jeggy, you're talking players that went on to have fantastic careers, captain Premier League teams, played in World Cups. So, I think it was real proper development, and that's definitely something that I took throughout my career, because, ultimately it's not easy to become a footballer. You're talking a tiny percent of people actually make it, and then I think making it and then sustaining it is two different things as well, and that's experienced every year by millions of players sort of around the world. So it's it's not an easy thing to do, and I think to have the longevity of a sort of 19, 20-year playing career is something that I'm really proud of, and it's definitely not easy, but some unbelievable times, promotions to the Premier League, playing against the best players in the world, in an era where you had your Ronaldos and your Bergkamps and Thierry Henrys, them sort of players. And yeah, it was just a bit surreal at times when you sort of, remember where you came from. And that's something I've always been really sort of humble. I always struggle to understand why players that sort of come from humble beginnings end up sort of changing. And yeah, football is full of, characters, different personas. And in the end, we all come from the same place, and that's, playing football as a kid. Most people come from humble beginnings, and I think that's something that when I moved to Australia as well, I sort of took that with me and on sort of my journey into coaching, and always tried to help players. But like you said, throughout that, so many ups and downs. Broken ankles, dislocated shoulders. I suffered from meningitis just before I broke in the first team at Sheffield United. So many sort of things that sort of go against you as well, and I think that does build resilience and character when you look back over what you achieved, as a player. I'm really proud of that, and then sort of transitioning to coaching, which is something that I always sort of wanted to do. But yeah, I mean, Sheffield United, it's just a shame they didn't get promoted last season back into the Premier League. Just missed out on the last couple of games of the season, but it's real difficult to get promoted, to the Premier League, and that's why everybody's trying to do it, because of the riches, and it's the best league in the world. So yeah, it's to be in and around it as a player and as a coach, again, is something that I'm really fortunate to have done, and don't take it for granted.
You grew up in Leeds, and no doubt you would have been a Leeds supporter growing up. Was there ever a time during your 15 years at the club at Sheffield they're like, okay, what if there's a chance to go back? Would you go back? I'm assuming that probably would have changed as your career went on. Obviously, I'm sure they would have looked after you pretty well at Sheffield United, but was there ever maybe an opportunity to go back, or did you want to go back?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously I had an affection with Leeds. I remember being a kid in the town centre when they won the title with Howard Wilkinson. Obviously, the likes of Gary Speed and Gary McAllister, Gordon Strachan, they're always the players that I sort of remember. And then obviously I was fortunate to play with Gary Speed at Sheffield United as well. So, but yeah, obviously went back there as a player, scored at the Cop End, beat them 4-0. So a lot of my friends were in the crowd, not happy. But I think them moments are them moments are when you sort of go back, and I sort of, when I left there, it wasn't because they released me. They just didn't guarantee me that I would have a scholarship at the end of it, because I missed so much football due to glandular fever and illness. So in the end, I sort of, Sheffield United offered me the 2-year guaranteed, and for me that I took that, and that was it. But yeah, I mean, look, I did have 2-3 opportunities to go back to Leeds United, and I was always sort of happy that Sheffield United was a big club. I nearly joined them once. I was out of contract at Sheffield United, and to be honest, we'd sort of agreed everything, and in the end, they sort of changed the goalposts a little bit, and yeah, I mean, Sheffield United were desperate to keep me. I obviously played in the Premier League, and I suppose that was probably the defining moment where I think loyalty in football, there's probably not much of it, and I've always sort of tried to be a loyal person. So I did stay at Sheffield United, and I don't regret my decision. And yeah, definitely have an affection for both clubs. But I mean, playing 15 years for Sheffield United, you're obviously going to have a big affection for them, and I always sort of followed them over the years as well. So that's the story there.
We're going to have to find out why they haven't put a statue out the front yet. 10 years is a long time.
Yeah, no, I think maybe one day. I think my old friend Billy Sharp probably get one before me. Top goal scorer, and he's left there last year. But it's again great affection, and always welcome back there.
Now, there's a famous video which I'm sure you've seen, done the rounds, of one of your long-term managers, Neil Warnock, while you were there. Now, I did a bit of research. I believe you were playing at the time. Were you in the dressing room when that happened? And can you give us a bit of insight of what Neil was really like?
Yeah, I mean, look, absolute character. I still speak to him now. And obviously, I managed against him in Scotland. That was funny. Great experience, but it still rings me. I still speak to him every now and then. But real character. I'm not the game. The game used to have a lot of characters. definitely changed a lot, over the last 10 years, and that's something that, whether good or bad, I think, there's a lot less characters in the game. But I mean, look, you see all these documentaries now, the Man City one, the Tottenham one when Mourinho was there, and it's like, Neil did his own documentary like 20 years ago, and he absolutely loved it. And we just remember, as the players, he would be like, the cameras in the dressing room, talking these massive, chunky cameras, which, back in the day, it was like the iPhone. It was like a big Nokia brick, and used to be these massive, massive cameras. And then obviously, since I've been at the Mariners, we've had the people in videoing, and obviously in different clubs, and now it's little small cameras and GoPros hidden and stuff. But back in the day, there'd be some guy, following Neil behind, people tripping over these big wires, and but Neil was just Neil. That was him. He was just, he was just said what he felt. Didn't really hold any grudges, and I definitely learned a lot from him. And as much as people see the character, he was a fantastic man manager. He treated everybody differently. I always remember the older players that, I brought in the first team at 17 with the likes of Phil Jagielka and Michael Tong, and these sort of young players, and yeah, he'd win on a Saturday, and he'd tell the older boys, "Look, I'll see you on Tuesday." He'd give them a couple of days off, for example, and that's the sort of respect he got back from them players, and the success he had, the promotions. And you look at everywhere he's been, he's had three teams promoted to the Premier League, which is really, really difficult. But yeah, definitely, the people that you work with throughout your career, coaches, players, you'll always take bits from them, the good bits, probably discard the bits you don't like. But no, he was a real character, and yeah, obviously I gave him my debut at 17 and put the trust in me, and yeah, we had some fantastic times together.
If we push now later towards the end of your playing career, and you decided to retire in late 2018, and not too long after, you took up a assistant coach position at Central Coast Mariners. What was the hardest part for you transitioning from a teammate to a coach?
Yeah, look, it's not easy. It's a real difficult transition, but I think, it's all about your personality and who you are as a person. And to be honest, I could have kept playing. I had offers to keep playing in the A-League. I had offers to go overseas, but I think family's really important. I had two young girls, and to be honest, they were settled, and I just thought, yeah, do you know what, I can keep playing, but actually, I've had a good career. I think I was 36. Could have kept playing, I reckon, for another 2 years if I really wanted, but I've always wanted to get into the coaching, and I'd already started down that pathway, sort of doing the UEFA badges and travelling every off season back to the UK. And I just think that transition is, look, it can be difficult because you're still coming fresh off being a player, so your ideas as a player can be a little bit different. But I think, when you actually understand what goes into coaching, what goes into the daily planning, like everything that comes around coaching, as a player, you just turn up there, and I've been fortunate. I played in the Premier League. You turn up, everything's done for you. The travel's done for you. You're scheduled, everything's scheduled, and you do sort of, get in them routines. And I think when you then become a coach, you're then responsible for, a lot of these things. But I think for me, it was just, I got asked to be an assistant when I just retired, and probably thought I'd, sort of take it just to sort of cross over and experience that. And then, I went into coaching the young kids from under 12s up to, the NPL boys. So I think my journey was one where you sort of throw yourself into it. And, there was difficult times. And, it's not easy. Definitely not easy. Like being a player, not easy. Being a coach is not easy. And you have to adapt. It's like anything in life, innit? You have to adapt or die. It's simple. So I think I can see why a lot of players really struggle. And I know a lot of teammates that have really, really struggled since they've finished playing, whether it's divorce, gambling, drinking, all them things, because you are institutionalised for so long, in that dressing room. Once you leave them four walls, I think people really struggle. And I think that's something that goes in top level sport throughout the world. So plenty of stories there. But for me, it was just head down, keep learning, be resilient, and adapt. So, I sort of enjoyed it at times, but at other times it was difficult.
Was it an easier transition because you've already might have been familiar with the club at Mariners going into a coaching position there? Or was there a little bit of hesitation taking that role?
look, I suppose going in as a coach, you're obviously working under somebody else. It's not really your ideas. You're there to support.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, when you're coming off fresh being a player, you have all these ideas, and in the end, you're there to support somebody else. And whether you agree with it or you don't, it's like, you have to support everything that's been done, but also, be able to give your opinion and stuff. So I mean, that's sort of part of the journey, that you go on. But ultimately, all these things shape you into the manager that you want to be in future, or the assistant, or whatever, whatever path you go down, post playing.
You touched on it just now, actually, as well, about your family settling in. So a question that we actually had was in regards to geographical movements, in regards to players, coaches, and families as well. And you move just not countries, but also like continents as well. Does a club, are they accommodating in regards to moving potentially your life to a whole different area, or is that something that the pressure might fall on you to do?
Look, to be honest, you probably all heard of Laurie McKinnon. So Laurie was a big reason why I came to the Mariners. So, Sheffield United and the Mariners, the owner at the time, had an affiliation together. I think there was some sort of percentage owned by the Sheffield United owner. So we'd always had that connection with the Mariners. So for me, it was always a club that, players had come over. I remember Trent Sainsbury came over to train for a couple of weeks at Sheffield United, and obviously there'd always been that connection. So I think when the opportunity came, I could have gone to Leeds United. I could have stayed in the Championship, and I had interest from some other clubs when I was leaving Sheffield United, because it was the right time for me to leave after so long. I wanted something new. But I mean, Laurie McKinnon, real character. He used to sit and he was showing me Terrigal in the background, and he used to ring me all the time. And, and obviously it was a season after that. Obviously, Angie's Brisbane team had beat the Mariners in that amazing comeback at the Suncorp. And speaking to Arnie, he was, he obviously wanted someone experienced in the midfield. And to be honest, Laurie was a big reason why I came. He kept on at me, and it made me feel, come over, everything will be sorted out. And then obviously John Hutchinson, one of my best mates now, still one of my best friends. He was just an unbelievable friend. And when we came over, he'd have me, the wife, and the kids round at his house, cooking on the barbecue, giving us that real Aussie, Aussie lifestyle in Terrigal. And on the Central Coast, which is a beautiful place. So, people really did help settle in. And then, to be honest, as a player at Sheffield United, when new players had come in, I'd always accommodate them and try and make them feel welcome. And obviously Hutch did that, and the boys were sort of really good. Patrick Svansweiger obviously had played overseas, so he'd had that experience, and just a real good bunch of lads. I think the team that we had was, I mean, look, ultimately, a lot of money was spent that season at the Mariners, and the club went bankrupt after that grand final. Mike Charlesworth took over the club. So, but one thing the club did that season was overspend. But I mean, look, there was a lot of good players, good characters that had been brought in, and we obviously won the grand final, first time in the club's history. So to go over as a player and to help them do that and achieve that, obviously that made things like the move, seem obviously a good move at the time. No, it's definitely not easy when you move to a different country, but the mateship and the teammates that you have, they definitely help when you move, for sure.
And the beach and the good weather.
Yeah, well, that's good on a day off. That's probably the difference. You have a day off out there, and you can go to the beach with the kids and have a swim. Whereas, obviously, some places the weather's not great, and you have a day off, you go shopping, whatever. It's again, that's a lifestyle. It's a different lifestyle.
Probably not getting recognised as much as like if you were out in Sheffield walking the streets there. I'm sure every second person, if not every person, would have recognised you. You're at the beach at the Central Coast in Terrigal, walking around. How good's this? The weather's nice. It doesn't sound too difficult.
Yeah, no, look, the people of the Central Coast were great to me as a player and as a manager. And I think being a regional town, that community feel and bringing everyone together is something that I put a lot of effort in and really enjoyed that.
Yeah. We spoke to the current Central Coast Mariners manager, Mark Jackson, beginning of last season, I think it was, and he was full of praise for you and the work that you'd done before him at Central Coast. Did you previously have some sort of connection or relationship with Jacko, and were you a part of him, moving over to the Mariners?
Yeah, so look, I mean, everyone knows that the effort that myself and Sergio put in at Mariners. It was a build over a couple of years. It wasn't an instant thing. It was a bunch of kids from the MPL that nobody believed in, that couldn't get in. Your Sydney FCs, your Melbourne Victories, and we brought them all in, and some players, from the Central Coast, your Farrells, your Harry Steels, and ultimately it was a team of kids that we made a real family. And on top of that, I think the visa recruitment we did was outstanding, and that's a big thing of I believe in having success in the A League. So I think the team that we sort of handed over after winning that grand final against Melbourne City, for me, that was the best team created in the A League, and I think it's been on to prove that, and to see the amount of them players that carried on to win back to back and then go overseas. I think it's something that we're really proud of. But yeah, Jacko, myself and Jacko spoke actually during COVID. He was at Leeds, and obviously we were doing a lot of stuff at the academy at the Mariners, and obviously from Leeds as well. And yeah, we'd sort of spoke, and sort of when he'd sort of moved on from Leeds and gone to MK Dons and obviously left there, he'd been out of work, and then obviously there was a lot of rumours about me sort of moving on to different clubs. And yeah, sort of when Hibs came in and made the offer for me, I'd sort of he contacted me and said, "Can you put my name in?" I think a friend of his that was his agent as well had contacted me, and I sort of gave him a good word to the club, and I genuinely believed it needed somebody to come in that had worked with young players, which he'd done at Leeds. Wasn't going to change much because not much needed changing. We'd already done pre-season. We'd been to Thailand. We'd sort of sold players and brought in new visa players, like Docker, Torres. You're talking two players that for me went on to be the best players in the A-League that following season, and they still had the core of the team that we'd sort of built. So I think it was important someone to come in that knew what he was inheriting and had sort of followed the team and the team's success. And I thought, to go on that second season, and go back to back and continue that success, as well as, we'd qualified for the AFC Cup in a tournament, which, before leaving, I knew that the club could go on and win. He steered the ship fantastically and did a wonderful job that second season. So I was just delighted for the players, and obviously I'd still speak to the players on a regular basis. So it was great to see that carried on.
You just brought his name up now. It's Sergio Ramos. I want to ask you a little about Sergio because as a coach you have your own journey, but you've been lucky enough to be with Sergio for such a long time, and you've had success together, and highs and lows. Tell us a little bit about that friendship and that partnership that you have with Sergio.
Look, I think in football, what's amazing is the amazing people that you meet, and especially when you're in a job where there's foreign players from different parts of the world, and it's the same with coaching. I think the biggest thing about the coaching courses is not just the content, it's the people that you meet. And I think meeting Sergio when I did, I think it was 2004-05, meeting Sergio when I did, you're talking, he's just an unbelievable person. Been at Benfica, and again, we just really aligned with the values of player development and sort of that discipline, and just a great guy. So I sort of knew that when I got into coaching, he's a sort of assistant that you would want to have with you. And I sort of brought Sergio over. But I mean, look, he's just first and foremost, he's a great guy, and then secondly, he's a wonderful coach, and his knowledge of training exercises. And I think both of us have very, very similar values in terms of the way we've been brought up. We haven't had it easy. And I think we've got a real passion for football, for developing players, for creating something special. And I think, that's what we did. It always takes a bit of time. You have to build something. But I think, what we did at the Central Coast was a beautiful thing, because it wasn't easy, and we had to totally restructure the club, implement sports science, sports psychology, and all these things we did together, and not just with Sergio. We brought in some fantastic people, with too many to mention. But really, for me, it's just about the environment that you create. And I think success will always come from the environment. And even when you have difficult times, I think if you have the environment right and you have the right vision and everybody's pulling in the same direction, then that's when success happens. And I've been involved in it as a player and a coach. And a lot of the times it's not rocket science. Obviously, you have the on-pitch stuff, which is ultra important, how the team plays, the identity, but also what you create off it. And I think that real family environment where everybody's pushing each other, everybody's respectful, and everybody's developing and learning, and that's players and staff. So, he's a fantastic guy. I know you've had him on, and I saw you had my old friend Lloyd Russo on as well. So
Yeah.
I'll jump on and speak to you guys today.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great chatting to them. Nick, as a coach, when an opportunity comes up like Hibs or Spurs, do you jump at these opportunities straight away, or do you take a step back and you look at where you might be in your coaching journey and then make a decision? Because obviously the pressure's much higher with these larger clubs.
Yeah, look, I think it's always about timing. Ultimately, it's about timing, and it's about obviously being wanted, and leaving the Mariners sort of from what we'd built there, leaving the Mariners on again a club that totally defied the odds. Sold millions of dollars worth of players, recruited top visas, developed an unbelievable. The fact that we were the number one club in the whole of AFC for academy developed players in the first team, that's an unbelievable achievement. So I think when opportunities came, I'd already knocked a couple back, and I'd always jump in. But I think sort of the Hibs one was a club that was bottom of the league, but bottom of the SPL when we took over. In the relegation spaces, in a real mess. And sort of speaking of the club, and obviously they paid compensation, and in the end, they wouldn't say promised, but they promised that, look, we need to come in, get us off bottom of the league, and we want to try and create something like they did at the Mariners. So in the end, everybody wants that, but that takes time, and ultimately the club was very unstable. Really, it was about going in and cleaning up what was, quite a mess. They had 20 odd players out on loan that had been signed as part of a development squad, which, they weren't players that were going to come back and play in the first team. And it was the oldest team in the SPL. So I sort of knew all these factors, and that's what made it an exciting opportunity to go in and totally rebuild. Look, but in the end, owners and sporting directors and all these people involved in football over here, in the end, sometimes they have different ideas, and in the end, I didn't agree with the way the club wanted to move forward on recruitment, and we took them to a semi-final, just missed out on the top six of the last kick of the game, and from that moment, things changed a little bit, and I think I'm pretty strong on my values and what I believe in, and ultimately, we sort of went different directions, and moving on from Hibs straight away, I had a couple of offers to go straight back into management, so it wasn't really take a step back, and then again, timing, everything. I'd been in touch with Ange over the years, I'd followed him, an unbelievable guy and a real trailblazer for Australian football. And I think he really respected what myself and Sergio had done at the Mariners, because I think if anyone knew where the club was when we took over to where we left it, with the lowest budget, the youngest team, in the history of the competition, I think, to see what we did, we'd sort of been in touch. He was probably the first text that I got when we won the grand final, because he watches every game. It was sort of a chance conversation that came. The assistant was leaving to take the Birmingham City job, and I spoke to Ange, and he said, look, this might be coming up. I mean, straight away, it's a Premier League. I played there as a player. You want to get to the top as a player, you want to get to the top as a coach, and going in as an assistant to somebody like Ange was something that I didn't really have to think much about. And a massive club like Tottenham that haven't won anything in a long time, and we spoke on that first phone call about doing something special and winning something. It wasn't going to be easy, and to be honest, it sort of escalated quite quickly, and within a few days, I was signing at Tottenham as an assistant, and Sergio as well. Spoke to Ange, and that opportunity came. So part of the journey, we sort of both went together, and again, that was amazing. So to do what we did last season under the circumstances and win a European Cup was it was an unbelievable achievement. And I think people, if they haven't realised now, they will definitely realise, because it was under extreme circumstances with massive injury crisis the whole season. So it was. You look back on it now, and it's it still feels a bit unreal.
Sergio mentioned this as well, and he said that he didn't come on board with the parade on the bus. Tell me about it. How was that in the city after winning that game?
Yeah, look, I obviously promotion at Sheffield United, at the town hall on the open top bus, and at the Mariners, and this was something else. You're talking, 250,000 people lining the streets of Tottenham and hanging off lampposts, and obviously everybody, had been out, partying all day. I think anyone that had a remote piece of Tottenham fan in them used it to get a day off from work. So I don't think any boss held anyone back. It was just unbelievable, the scenes, and being on the top of the bus with all the players, and obviously Ange and the coaching staff was just, it was amazing. But there's people hanging off buildings. I always remember pulling up at the stadium and all the portable toilets that had been put out. There's people standing on top of them. The roofs were caving in. Yeah, it was honestly. I mean, look, you're talking 41 years since they won a European Cup, and they'd only won the League Cup. In all that time between, you look at the world class managers and coaching teams and players that had been through that club and never won anything, but it was just an unbelievable experience. And it still seems a little bit surreal now when you see it pop up on the internet and stuff. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, it was crazy for us as well. So I've been Spurs fan my whole life. Our third member, which is my brother, we, like you said, we had a couple of days off work to celebrate as well. We're on the other side of the world, right? Like literally, the game was at 5:00 in the morning. We did not sleep before. We're at the pub from 10:30 the night before. It was crazy. So we kind of just wanted to say thank you as well, and obviously touch on those celebrations. We went back home, had a couple of hours sleep, and then you see the parade come out. You watch that on TV for 3 hours, and I just remember seeing you on the bus as well. I'm like, look at this flag, what a champion! So it would have been crazy to see. So we just want to say obviously a big thank you for bringing the success and trophy to our club. Going off that now, it's been introduced into mainly the Premier League we see, because we watch the Premier League every single week. The iPad that's on the touchline these days during the match, and you see all the assistants gathered around that. What are you guys actually seeing? What are you looking at, and does it actually help?
Yeah, look, obviously with VAR and stuff now, it's obviously instant feedback from the analysts. So if there's a moment where we all know now VAR happens, a goal scored, it's like nobody wants to celebrate until we've sort of gone in slow motion. And then one of the coaches goes, yes, it's a goal. And obviously you see Ange, and I've been a manager as well with the VAR, and it's a weird feeling. You want to celebrate, and sometimes you do, and then you think, why am I celebrating? Because it's going to go to VAR. And it's like, again, people will have different opinions. There's definitely some positive with VAR, but also there's bits where you go, that's sort of killing that excitement, and the fans are all quiet. So there's incidents like that, and you're sort of looking at the iPad, and then look, in terms of modern technology now, I mean, it's huge compared to what it was 10 years ago. So even whether it's set pieces, whatever it is, it's easier to just flick on the iPad than it used to be to get a paper and pen, and you're trying to scroll on there to show a player where he should be, and they're looking at you like that's just a load of scribble on a piece of paper. So it's like, again, sometimes it's a bit far fetched, but I mean, there's so much technology now. It's the game's just it's gone to a crazy level now, and with AI coming in, it's just gonna continue. But in the end, ultimately, it's 11v11 and a round ball on the pitch. And the rules are going to be the rules. And I think the VAR and all that stuff now just adds a little bit more drama to the game.
You start drawing your own lines when there's like a close offside ruling. Do you start drawing your own lines, or like do you see? Because obviously when we're watching on TV, we can see it live what they're doing, and like if it's going to be goal or no goal. Do you get that same footage as well, or because everyone at the ground, all the supporters, they're just waiting for the big screen, I guess.
Well, you do, but you have obviously the analysts up in the stand, and I'm not one that really likes to wear an earpiece, but like Millie Edinat last year had the earpiece, so he'd be getting feedback from the analyst, and he'd say it's a goal, and then one of the other coaches would get feedback from someone else, and he'd say it's no goal, and he just in the end he's just like, just wait and see what
Just wait.
happens. Because the anticipation is just, and then the earphone won't work, or it's too loud in the stadium, like in Bilbao, where I mean that was an amazing couple of days in Bilbao as well, but you're just talking, just it's just drama. And in the end, as a manager, you're just standing there thinking, just watching the referee see what decision is made in the end.
It's a bit sad. I think like you don't know whether to celebrate or not. It's kind of sucking the life out of it. But everyone's got, like I said, everyone's got their own opinion on it. Football, it's a demanding sport mentally, physically, especially being a manager or a head coach. How does Nick Montgomery like to spend his time away from the football pitch?
Not really easy. You said it then. It is really demanding, especially in Europe. It's just the scrutiny and the social media, and to be honest, a lot of it's just noise. There's so much noise. I'm not someone that really looks at social media. Try to avoid that sort of stuff, and I think again that's really damaging for players. I've seen players' confidence just be zapped in Australia and England. It's real sad that the world has come to that, where people can just instantly, fans from other clubs can instantly contact you and contact, the club's social media and do all this sort of stuff. But for me, I just try to enjoy time with the family. I've got 3 young girls. At the minute, it's the first time I've ever been out of football since I was 16. Not been in the start of a pre-season, so just try to be a better dad. Try to be a better husband. But my wife's always like, Nick, you need to stop moving around, and like you're sort of itching to be involved, but then you have to take a step back and go, what? This is the first time I've actually not started a pre-season since I was 16. So try and enjoy it, and try and get yourself out there, and start reading a bit more, watching a few documentaries and stuff, and I'll probably go and do a couple of club visits and stuff, because at the time right now it's pre-season, it's the whole of Europe. We had the Club World Cup, which was took over everything, and now sort of pre-season has started. So I mean, look, it's really quiet in Europe. No games have even started yet. So yeah, just try to spend time with the family, and been away a little bit and a couple of holidays, and I think that's really, really important to utilize that time, because when you are in football, it's just all consuming. Even the times when you're back at home, you're thinking about the next day's training, the next day's game. Being a manager, you're dealing with players, issues off the field, and signing players and selling players, and that's part of what you love as well. But there is no respite, and I think that's the main thing that I've sort of tried to do, and I think it's really important as well.
Nick, you've been really gracious with your time, but it's come to that point. I'd mentioned it before we started recording. It's our infamous question that we like to ask our guests right at the end of the podcast. So, Nick, who is your coach's son? Nick, it can be a jokester, someone that gave you a hard time or anything like that throughout your career, coach, player, anything like that.
I think Sergio probably mentioned it, but someone like Jason Cummings, just an absolute character. Beautiful person, but just at times he's crazy, and constantly, at the Mariners, I had him in the office, arm around him. A couple of times I sat him down and thought, Jace, that was stupid, and he'd be like, sorry, Gaffer, I won't do it again, and obviously get out of here. And now, look, you meet some real characters. I played with some unbelievable characters, and obviously in coaching, love helping people, love seeing people, come from difficult situations or come from nothing and give debuts to people. But I think you have someone like Jason, and I still speak to him now. He's always messaging me, and I'll probably say Jason Cummings.
Proper
Nice.
character.
That's his second time. We're going to have to get him on now, Steve, somehow.
you have to
Get in touch
this-
with him.
lock him down. I think he's been travelling the whole of the world in the off season, so
Yeah.
just got engaged actually. So I said that's probably the most sensible thing you've ever done, Jason. So yeah.
Came up on my social media again where he mentioned like Giroud went straight past him and he was saying that he couldn't speak English, and then Giroud ended up getting in contact with him. Like, it just tells you what kind of character he is.
You have to try and get him on. He's a funny guy.
I'm sure that'll be a hell of a conversation. Nick, thanks very much for your time. We wish you the best for whatever's next. We'll be watching for sure.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Take care, everyone. Make sure you like and subscribe and keep an eye out for what's next. And that's us with the Coach's Son. Thanks, everyone.
This was not meant to happen. This could not happen.